welcome to F1 Rolling Start with
Ben
and James. We're here to go under the helmet and over the top this week as we discuss the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix, which is normally very boring.
Yeah.
But this year was a little spicy.
Oh, I mean, there was safety cars. The FIA couldn't get their head around what they were going to do.
Couldn't get their feet together.
We were having people freaking run over debris, ruining their races.
Penalties, punctures, all over the place. It was an absolutely wild weekend. We thought that McLaren was going to put a massive gap between them and Ferrari this weekend.
Nope.
But we are down to a title fight still in the
Imagine that. We haven't had a title fight
on the
into the last race in quite some time.
Matter of fact, the last time we had this good of a season, I would say it would be 2021.
Yeah.
2021 was the last time the seasons were this good.
Yes.
After 2021, that was a regulation change to 2022.
Yeah.
And that's when Red Bull just started ripping and tearing.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's been the Red Bull show until this year. Now, thinking about the last time we had the best season was right before regulation changes. The 2025 season has got to be insane.
Well, yeah. I mean, we talked about this as well. We've got almost half of the teams winning races, which is incredible. We have 4 teams who are winning races, multiple drivers, 7 drivers winning races. Going into next year, it's going to be anyone's game of those 4 teams. And so, it's going to be up in the air. It's going to be incredible. Last year was historic and boring.
Correct.
Next year is going to be just everyone's guns are out. Everyone's just going for it. And it's going to be down to the wire.
How many times did we hear last year? Everyone's saying it's boring, but you've got to remember.
I was like, stop it. All you Europeans.
Exactly. Get out of here with all of that. It's boring right now. But anyway, it's not this year. It's absolutely amazing.
Fantastic.
Let's start by debriefing this race. So the winner of this race, his first victory since becoming the 4-time world champion in Formula One, Max Verstappen. His 9th win this season. Gets a grid penalty of 1 place.
Which, when were there grid penalties of 1 place?
So stupid. Again, another notch in the negative side.
I'm gonna go off on the FIA under a different team, so we'll wait for that.
Max came, he conquered a dominant win, and I just think he's kind of like the Tom Brady of F1 right now, without the Uggs.
Well, here's the weird thing though. Like this weekend, it wasn't necessarily a given for them. In the sprint, Max finished 8th. Checo, I mean, it doesn't really matter where Checo finishes because it's not indicative of where Max is going to finish or where Red Bull is going to finish. But Checo finishes 20th. They were struggling in the sprint. And then all of a sudden in qualifying, Max just decides to turn it on somehow. As he does, he literally races in quali the perfect lap.
Yeah.
All the commentators are just saying this is unreal, like millimeter perfect. Which is incredible. It's what you expect of Max. And he gets to the front, and then he gets this 1 place grid penalty for coming together with Russell. Like I don't think they even touched, but really funky.
It wasn't even coming together. They were both on a cool down laps or warm up laps. And the point is they were on laps that were not race runs, which is when you're supposed to not impede people.
Yeah. And he did.
Russ comes look, I'm a Mercedes fan, but Russ comes flying around the corner to a slow Verstappen. They're both on slow laps.
Yeah.
Russ has to move out of the way. Verstappen's like, what's going on?
And calls it in right away.
He's like, what is going on?
You can always count on Russ to call it in right away.
Russ is the teacher's pet. His class president. I'm going to be the president of the Drivers Association. I'm going to make sure that everyone is being taken care of. Please vote for Russell. It's like,
Russ is that guy.
He's insane.
But Max,
it's a crap penalty. It was a crap penalty.
It didn't matter.
And when else do you? This This is what grinds my gears.
Yes.
When do you see a 1 grid place penalty? Give him a reprimand. Give him a whatever.
Give him a warning.
But 1 grid place?
Well, you see it when there's a brand new race director who doesn't know what the frick they're doing. And also the FIA.
Man, I don't envy that guy's job.
It's a tough job. You don't want to be in it. But anyway, it didn't matter for Max. He started P2. He overtook Russ literally in turn 1.
Right.
And then holds on to the lead of the race.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the end.
He rips.
Multiple restarts.
Multiple restarts.
Multiple rolling
He survives
starts.
multiple restarts. And the thing is the Red Bull is not the best car on the track.
No.
He's wringing the neck out of that thing. He's getting every ounce of performance out of it. Now, Red Bull is, well, it's a tale of two sides. Because you have Max dominating the race. You have his teammate finishing in.
This was the worst weekend for Checo. Like it just new lows for Checo. It's like, how low can you go, Checo? This weekend was 20th for the sprint. 20th. Okay, that's as low as you can go. Well, no, there's another level of awfulness. He DNFs in the actual race, and he has to start from the pit lane, gets overtaken by a freaking Williams this weekend from the pit lane. Every commentator is like, Helmut Marko is going to freaking have this guy's head.
100%.
He has to have a bulletproof excuse for how freaking Franco Colapinto overtakes him in the pit lane in a Williams.
No, dude, it's like when you're at a red light and you get honked by the person behind because you're texting. That's what Checo is doing. He is zoned out. He is not checked in.
No.
He spun out during the race. He lost drive. He retired the car. His season just continues to be a bad telenovela.
He is the only person who the news hasn't reached him that he's not coming back next year. He is convinced he's coming back.
I have a contract.
Everyone else in the grid is like Teddy Kravitz is just like, no one seems to have given Checo the heads up that he's not coming back. Like, this guy's season is going to be over.
Yeah.
Everyone else knows it but him. He's convinced he's coming back. And with results like this weekend, and here's the thing, I hate when I'm going to go off for a second. I hate when teams try to spin it and they try to say, oh, it was a strong recovery drive. It was, coming back through the field. No, you had the worst freaking weekend you could have, and your teammate went out and won the race.
Exactly.
So at this point, Red Bull is risking no longer being seen as a serious team if they hold on to Checo. Like, I think that's what's at stake. Is right. Like their credibility. Other teams aren't afraid of Red Bull anymore.
No.
Yeah, Max won, but they dropped to third place in the constructors. They have lost the fear factor that is so necessary to dominate your opponents. They've lost that. They've lost that because of their own internal crap that was going on, that was self-imposed, and also because their second driver.
Checo is driving himself out of that seat. Unless he asks Max to start giving him driving lessons, he's done. Red Bull has said that they are sitting down after the season and they are going to discuss all of their drivers and where their drivers are placed, which means that Checo has a contract for 2025. Whether or not he is in the Red Bull team versus the sister team at RB is another story.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though, and I didn't write this question down, but it's coming to me now. Who would you put in that second seat between Lawson and Yuki? If Checo's out of that second Red Bull seat, if you've got to choose between Liam and Yuki, realistically, who do you feel like is going to be the better second driver?
Man, I feel like performance-based, you would say on paper, it would be Yuki.
Yeah.
You would say Yuki has put it in this season. He's also put the work in over the last few years. He's definitely improved.
He's in 12th place in the drivers.
He outscored Lawson last year. There's just caveats attached to Yuki. He has improved, and he's held his place at a team that's not really expected to get out of the midfield.
No.
As a matter of fact, struggled to get into the midfield.
Yeah.
Over the last few seasons. And so for me, although the data says choose Yuki, and that would probably be the safe choice, I would assume you're looking at another Checo story. I would argue that a fresh driver with more potential over time would be Lawson.
Yeah. I agree. Honestly, I feel like Red Bull doesn't have a solid number 2 driver.
And that's the question that I would follow your question up with is, can I answer neither?
I'm like, can we just pick the guy who just sped past Sergio in the pit lane? Can we somehow beg Colapinto to come over to Red Bull?
Well, okay, so
Sainz.
I don't think Williams is in a place, although they're getting loans out. We'll come to that later.
We'll come to that. There's so much to talk about there.
The thing with me is I think exactly what you said. Colapinto should be it. Colapinto did something in that pit lane that a rookie driver would think twice about.
Yeah.
Whereas he pulled a Max Verstappen and overtook somebody on the pit lane.
Yeah, it was incredible.
And instead of complaining like Checo did that time where he was like, they're going so slow. Max just drove up half on the grass, half on the road. Yeah. Colapinto saw his opportunity and he said, penalty or not, I'm already at the back of the field. Might as well
go for it. Yeah, I mean,
that's what Red Bull needs.
That is. I don't think they have that in Yuki. I don't think they have that in Liam. And we can get into them when we go down to talk about VCAR. But yeah, I mean, it was a great weekend for Max as far as the race is concerned, solidifying his championship even further. Abysmal, can't get any worse for Checo. It's just solidifying his exit from the team. And I don't think there's any other way to square it.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
Perez.
It's been nice.
You are the weakest link. You're fired. Any other TV show about kicking people off? You're disqualified. It's over. And that is Red Bull. Yeah. And they really do have to figure this out because next year, if they go into the season with only one driver, they will not only lose,
they're going to be fourth
the World
or fifth.
Championship. They will be in the area below the top 3.
Mercedes will have a stronger pair. Ferrari will have a stronger pair. McLaren will have a stronger pair. Mm-hmm. And Red Bull Max can't carry these guys.
I agree. Well, we go from the top of the field to the bottom of the field. The losers of the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix were Williams. My goodness.
So there was some news that came out that we talked briefly about before the show. I'm going to lift it up here again. So not only did Williams had a DNF with Franco and almost a DNF with Albon, both on lap 1.
Yes. He spun and collided and then got a penalty.
Unreal. Not only, is James Vowles literally losing his mind, but this came out, Ted Kravitz broke this in his notebook, that this is the impact of teams the lower end of the field. The financial impact, the impact to just how they operate. So James Vowles reportedly is having to seriously consider taking out a £20 million loan for next year in order for Williams to be where he feels like they need to be. And that is because they're 9th place right now.
Oh.
And they do not have the finances that they need in order to actually achieve what he wants to achieve next year. Not only that, are they having to borrow money, but Williams literally had to go to Mercedes and borrow rear suspension parts from their heritage cars, their cars from the last previous seasons, because
which weren't great, by the way.
No, because of the damage that these drivers have inflicted to these cars, and they just don't. They literally are having to borrow money and borrow parts.
Yeah. Williams they're back to being F1's punching bag again. Like, is it time to press the panic button?
So you're out of money and you're out of parts. Those two things would seem to be essential to operating a Formula One team. So, yes, I mean, I think those are just red flags.
Yes.
Huge concerns. And again, this is the implications for these teams when you finish in a 9th place, you finish in a 10th place. That's why it's so hard for you to crawl, to claw, to try to get your way back to being competitive, because you just don't get the money these other teams do when you finish that low.
And if you think about, that's what they had to do before this weekend. First lap.
Oh, God.
Franco's out. It wasn't his fault.
No.
The dude's got so much promise and the worst luck. The absolute worst luck. And you've got Albon spinning. Damage again. Trying to finish out this season. And the hardest part is that he's not going to get a loan based off of improvement from last year. He's going to get a loan based off of poorer performance.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Williams, let me just quickly fact check this because I want to speak correctly here. So in the 2023 Constructors, Williams was 7th place.
Mm-hmm.
They're currently 9th place. And no one really knows how much money each of those places is. Like, there's rough estimates, but it sounds like it's about 10 million per place.
Yep. Estimated. Yeah.
So it's not hard to do the math. You fall from 7th to 9th. That's $20 million.
Correct.
Which is where he's at with the loan that he needs. So it's
because that's his budget. His budget is based off of placing 7th.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important to the team.
What is, we talked about this last week, but my question to you is, what is Sainz thinking when he hears Williams is out of parts, Williams is out of money? Is this guy trying to desperately reconfigure his contract, see if there's any way in heck he can get to a Red Bull seat? What is he thinking?
I would have said when Sainz signed, he would have been in the place of, I can see the upward trajectory of this team. It's almost like when he signed, like it's like Enron. It's like someone who bought Enron stock right before it came out that it was a farce. It just crashed. And he could be looking around going, man, do I just sell these shares for pennies on the dollar? It's only going to get worse from here. Can I get out of this contract? Do I accept Red Bull's offer? Let them buy me out of it and just beg James to let me go. Does James hold on? Like, can Williams turn their car around in 2025? Or are they just stuck in the, I'm happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, to your question, I don't think they can. And I think they're going to become the new kick. I think there's still further for them to fall. And at this point, we're not seeing the type of results or, positive movement to say otherwise. They've had multiple DNFs in the last few races. I'm going to quickly look here. They have had in the last, it's painful. 6 DNFs in the last 7 races between the two drivers. I mean, the last time they scored was in Austin. Colapinto was in 10th. But since then, there's been 5 DNFs since Austin. I mean,
and everyone else has improved.
Everyone else is improving. You look at Alpine.
Got
you look
points.
Kick.
Like,
my wallet's over there, but I have your money.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Kick. I just don't I don't see what they can do in 2025. And they're not a team that can coast through 2025 and expect to be fighting in 2026. We're looking at a team that was bought by an investment group.
Yeah.
Investors want a return. They don't generally want to pour more money into it.
No.
Unless you can guarantee that the money that they invest in addition to what they've already put in is going to bring them a return. But right now, there's no evidence of that.
There isn't.
There's no evidence of that. It feels like gambling with Williams.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a rough spot to be in. Rough weekend outside the points. They've been outside the points the last 5 races and just have not seen a good result. So, yeah, I mean, borrowing money, borrowing parts, it doesn't really get much worse than that.
No, I agree. But you know who had better luck this weekend?
Who?
Ferrari.
Ferrari did.
The red team was back.
These guys.
They had the weekend of their life. Everything went right. Even the things that went wrong turned out to be okay.
Yeah.
Sainz got a puncture, and they still beat McLaren this
Finished
weekend.
in 6th.
It is out of control. How
it was great.
Lucky they were. Now, they weren't that in and of themselves particularly lucky. I mean, Chuck had a great race.
Yeah.
But it was just that the other team that they are fighting, McLaren, was so unlucky.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sprint, Sainz was in 4th, Chuck was in 5th. They finished behind McLaren, and McLaren had a great haul of points in the sprint. However, in the race, Chuck finishes 2nd, Sainz finishes 6th. Somehow, when he hit that puncture, I was like, this guy's out. This is going to be terrible for Ferrari. This is exactly what they don't need right now. Somehow he pulls it together and is able to still finish 6th. And so, yeah, I mean, we're going into the final race of the season, and there is a absolute championship yet to be fought. My question to you is, between Ferrari and McLaren, who has more momentum going into the final race?
Oh, I think momentum, the story of momentum is on Ferrari's side.
Yeah.
But the reality is I think that this will be McLaren's.
There's still a gap.
I think that this will be, it's still McLaren's to lose. It would take McLaren having a tragic weekend in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
It would require 2 in a row.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chuck got P2 because Lando had to serve an outlandish penalty.
We'll get there.
And so, and Carlos dragged a punctured tire around for a lap, which is great tough guy energy. But after that, his race was DOA. It was done. The reality is that McLaren just had such a bad weekend.
Yeah.
That they seemed to come out on top. And they were just in the right place at the right time. I think they are looking at McLaren saying, you haven't won in 25 years. We haven't won in over 10. And I still think that we'll, at the end of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, be the bridesmaid still.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there is a lot of momentum behind Ferrari right now. There's a lot of energy behind Ferrari, even with some of the drama from Vegas and prior to that. It does feel like going into the last race, there is optimism. I do think you're right, though, because McLaren right now is at 640 points. Ferrari's at 619, so 21 points back. It would have to be an absolute travesty of a weekend for Ferrari to take it. But I think there's confidence. And I think they're
100%.
going into the final race saying, listen, we can
They're fighting
this.
for it.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. It's all on. And it is all on.
It really is.
Yeah. Like it could be something crazy. I mean, the way that Norris was fighting Verstappen today, there could be a crash. There could be something wild that happens in Abu Dhabi. And Abu Dhabi is known for drama. So we don't know what can happen. And it's a bit of a track-wise, it's a bit of an equalizer for them. Like neither of them have heavily weighted strengths at this track that's going to do anything wild for them. But in saying that, I guess my question about Ferrari is like, are they cursed? Are they incompetent? Are they both?
No, I mean, Ferrari, if we were talking a couple seasons ago where they were in contention to win, remember when Chuck was winning all those races out the gate, and we're like, oh my God, Ferrari's
Chuck was leading the world championship.
He was. That was a season where it all got away from them. And that was a season where there was just such botched strategy and incompetence. They've turned it around. You know, Freddie V's turned it around for them. I think they're in a great spot. And if they lose, if they finish second place, I think they can actually still be really proud of what they did this season, because going into next year, I think they actually have the ability to say, listen, we've got frickin' Hamilton coming next year. And we finished in second. The regulations are still the same. We've got Chuck. He won races this season. Hamilton was winning races with Mercedes this last season. He still can do it. And new start for Hamilton, new fire. Like, I think if there's a team to bet on next year, it's going to be Ferrari.
Wow. I think Ferrari's still going to be the underdog next year. I think the team to bet on is McLaren.
I think if I've got to look at Hamilton and a Ferrari that can win.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get it, but you're talking.
I know.
It's different power unit, different aerodynamics, different team dynamics. You're looking at a team where Piastri's third year at Norris is like 100th year at McLaren. He's been there forever, and like they work well together. They've learned from all the struggles of fighting at the top. They're going to bring some people in. Like, it's going to be a great year for them. Realistically, Lewis is going to spend the first third of the season getting up to speed on their car.
It's going to take a minute, but this man is bringing a wealth of knowledge. He's someone that is going to be able to bring that to bear on the team. He's going to be able to bring, that critical feedback from that experience. He's someone that Chuck can look up to as someone who he can learn from. I mean, it would be insane in their first season together if they do it. But I think in the constructors in their first season together, I think there's a chance. I'm willing to say that these guys are the ones to watch.
Who do you think will win the Constructors' Championship in 2025? Who do you think will win out of McLaren and Ferrari?
If Ferrari this season...
I didn't ask. It's not an open-ended question.
If they are this close to winning this season, and I get it, Hamlin's first year next year, I think that they're going to win next year.
Okay, I think McLaren's going to win next year.
I don't think they're going to win the drivers, but I think Ferrari has a really good shot to win the constructors next year.
You're crazy. You don't...
I know.
You're crazy.
I know.
Piastri and Norris are going to sweep the floor next season. Unless Red Bull brings in some crazy second driver and has some crazy car.
Yeah, Red Bull's
out of the picture. It is between McLaren and Ferrari next year.
Dude, the Hamilton factor is a real thing.
I'm with you, but I don't think it's real enough to take on a seasoned duo like Piastri and Norris.
Dude,
that's wild. We'll see, we're so off topic, but I absolutely love it.
We'll see. Ferrari this season, they've got momentum, they've got energy. I don't know if that's going to be enough to, overcome the 21-point difference to McLaren, but I think it's going to be something they can be proud of. At the end of the day, this is a season they can be proud of. This is a season where they really, I think, performed better than the beginning of the season, forecasted. And so it's an incredible foundation to build off of for their championship run next year.
Agreed. Man, Ferrari was one lucky team today.
And that's what you got to be sometimes in F1. You just got to be in the right place, the right time.
Yeah.
You got to be lucky. And you just got to, sometimes you just got to sweep up the points when they're there. Like freaking when Russ won in Austria, he was just like,
how did I do this?
Great. Okay. Max and Lando are going to crash out. Like,
I'm taking
thanks.
I was like 10 plus seconds behind him, but I guess I'll win this race.
I guess I'll win. Like, and that's, I think Ferrari is, the season didn't start off that way. But they started winning.
Yep.
They started getting more competitive. Then they started hunting down McLaren in the end, and they cut into that deficit. So,
I mean, we've got a title fight on our hands because of performance and luck.
It's been great.
Yeah, it is. It has been great. What has not been great is V-carb.
Yeah.
I just want to know if they can give Yuki a car that isn't allergic to performance. He had a hot start on the medium tires and then sunk like a lead balloon, finishes the race in P13. And there's no hope for more.
No.
There was no hope for more. Lawson had an awful race. Penalty. He spun out. He had no pace.
Yeah. Yeah. He finished 14th.
He had a weekend that went one step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah. And let me clarify. He finished 14th, and there were 5 drivers that DNF'd.
Correct.
So essentially, he finished 19th.
100%.
Right? Yeah, I mean, this is tough because going into this season, there was all this energy around V-carb, right? They had Danny Rick. They had Yuki.
The coolest livery on the field, in my opinion.
They got, Hugo Boss. They've got the specs of the Red Bull car.
New team principal,
so
the whole
dominant.
thing. It was great.
Great energy, and it just didn't materialize in the way that what they would want. And this is something that I want to just pull up as well. They are now kind of in Mercedes and Aston Martin territory where they're stuck on an island. Mercedes is stuck in 4th place, can't go higher, can't go lower. Aston Martin is stuck in 5th place, same thing, can't go higher, can't go lower. Now the battle, they say there's a 3-way battle between Alpine, Haas, and V-Car, but really it's 2-way at this point. It's Alpine with 59 points, Haas with 54. V-Carb's got 46 points. There is no way they are catching Haas, and there's absolutely no way they're catching Alpine.
No.
So now they're stuck in 8th place.
I think RB is the poster child for missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Missed opportunities and missed potential. They had all the potential in the world, and they kind of just pissed it away this season.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously the Danny Rick piece of it was really unfortunate.
Gosh, it's been a long Formula One season. That was this year. That's crazy.
Year. I was going back and putting in some of the results, and I had to put in some of Danny Rick's results, and I was like, oh, this feels so sad. But yeah, I mean, call it what you will. It just didn't work out. And they had to bring in Liam later on. And Liam, what have your thoughts been on Liam's total performance? I know, car is a huge factor, but do you feel like he has lived up to the hype?
No. That's the answer. The answer to Lawson living up to the hype is no. I think he was better last year when he subbed in for Danny Rick.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's caught quite up to Yuki as much as I had hoped he would.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to come in and really shake it up. And I think this weekend I saw a driver out there that was frustrated, and his pace reflected that.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, he has only scored twice. And again, he's, only been in since Austin. Danny Rick scored 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
So he's obviously come on towards the back half of the season. I don't know that he's performed better than Danny Rick would have still performed.
And a lot of these tracks he raced at. Like he raced at Qatar last year, which was wildly different, but still the track.
Yeah.
And I'm just not seeing it in the qualifying pace. I'm not seeing it in the race pace for sure. I do love that every time he's on the track, him and Perez seem to find each other. Like they're like little magnets of drama that kind of levitate towards one another.
Yes.
And that I appreciate, but that's just fun to watch. If we're talking about like performance, do you really want to be scrapping with Sergio Perez? No. You want to be doing what Tsunoda's doing, where he's actually battling it out with the other teams that are in the constructors race with RB.
Yeah.
I think my question in regards to Tsunoda is VCarb wasting the talent that Tsunoda has and Red Bull?
That's a good question.
Or is he just not as good as everyone thinks?
That's a really good question. I'll draw an equivalent, although it's not a fair equivalent to another
Cleveland
team.
Browns.
No, another team that's wasting the talent of a driver. Aston is wasting the talent of Alonso. Right?
100%.
Mercedes, the last several seasons, has wasted the talent of Hamilton. Now, again, Hamilton's had his struggles, but they, for several seasons, couldn't give him a car, therefore wasted his talent.
Self-admitted.
So, like, there are teams that waste the talent of their drivers because they can't give them the machinery they deserve. Does Yuki deserve a better car than VCarb? I don't know. Like, we've never seen him in another team besides VCarb. So,
exactly.
Like, is he better than a VCarb? It's really hard to say.
Yes.
Is he more talented than a VCarb? I'm like, I don't know. Like, we would only know that if he gets better machinery.
Yeah.
I don't think he will ever get better machinery.
And that's that. I guess my question is, they're putting him in the Red Bull for testing at the end of the season. The last person they put in the Red Bull for testing was Danny Rick.
Yep.
He essentially matched the pole time of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull.
Yeah, to like a 10th or something like that.
And so what? So Yuki gets in there and matches Max. Does that mean that he can race a car at the top of the field?
Clearly not.
Is Yuki a top 3 driver?
No, absolutely not.
Then why are they even considering him for that seat?
Well, we talked about this a little bit before, but Red Bull at this point doesn't have a great stable of drivers.
Right.
They've got Max, who is the clear outlier, and everyone else is not. They're not a top 10 driver.
But let me push back on that.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't think it's that they don't have a good stable of drivers. They have one of the most robust benches in the industry. And they have 4 seats that they can develop people with. The problem is, it's not that they don't have the right drivers. I think it's that they have played it safe over the last 4 years with their driver choices.
Okay.
And so instead of developing new talent, they've matched what the other end of the field has been doing, and they've just kind of tried to poach the best drivers that are out there. Whereas the reason we have Max Verstappen is because they said, let's give a 17-year-old a chance.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm on with what Mercedes is doing by saying, let's give an 18-year-old a chance.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you're right to call out Red Bull as playing it safe because they haven't succeeded in developing a top-level talent besides Max.
Right.
You think back to the other drivers that they've developed. Danny Rick, obviously he was part of the team. He left.
Yes.
He found his way back. That didn't work. You think about Gasly. That didn't work. You think about Albon. That didn't work. You think about Yuki. Has it worked? I mean, he's scoring points for you. But like, you think about Liam. Like, you think about these Checo. Like, yeah, sure. Last year he was second place, but just barely,
100%,
barely hanging on. This year's been atrocious. So Red Bull has really struggled, and they haven't hit lightning in a bottle like they did with Max.
No.
Or like Mercedes is trying to do with Kimi.
Exactly. And the reality for me is this. They have security in Max as a driver. They chose a paycheck over performance with Checo. They chose a paycheck over performance with Danny Rick. They chose mediocrity over trying to find a different person for VCarb with Yuki. And with Lawson, it was too little too late. They should have had him in that seat a season or two ago.
Is the problem Helmut Marko?
Helmut Marko's a character.
He's their, head of driver development,
curmudgeon,
75-year-old
with a lazy eye, and I don't know what is going on there. But I don't know if it's him that is the problem as much as
he's the name.
It's the money trail for me.
I mean, he's the one whose name constantly comes up as having the pull with who gets the seat, who's knocked out of the seat. It's him.
Yeah, but there's also the tension of Helmut Marko and Horner's relationship.
Well, yeah.
And Horndog's the top. So if you've got an issue, who does the buck stop with?
Well, yeah, it's Horner.
So if Marco's the reason, why hasn't Horner kicked him out?
Yeah, it's confusing why he's still there. But I think
we should do a whole episode on what we think of the team principals and
that's fantastic. That's a great
off-season vibe right there.
That's fantastic.
Because we could dive into that all freaking day. Yeah, RB was garbage this weekend.
Yeah.
And I don't think they are looking forward to remembering the 2024 Qatar race.
No, and again, they went from being in contention with Alpine and Haas for the midfield to they're on a lonely island and they're stuck and they're not going to go any higher.
Yeah. On to McLaren. Where do we even start?
There's a lot there.
Holy crap.
There's
Norris, fastest car on the grid, but the fastest way to throw it all away is to apparently keep your foot down under a yellow flag because the dogs came out, bro.
I mean, well, this is where it just went sideways. So in the sprint, we got to talk about the sprint for just a hot second. Piastri's first, Lando's second, but it's only because Lando swaps on the final 100 yards of the race and just
one of the closest finishes in F1 history.
Yeah. I mean, he gives it to Piastri. Ted Kravitz had just a great couple lines about this. One of the lines was, you should never bet on sprint races because the teams will do whatever the heck they want in a sprint. So just never bet on a sprint race. But also he said too, like, listen, this just had like a kind of left a weird taste in your mouth.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like, wait, why are we doing this? And then, Lando's like, well, it's for Brazil because in the sprint in Brazil, Piastri gave the win to him. So you can say that it's, them being team players or whatnot, but it felt weird to me.
Yeah, it did. It felt icky. I don't think the team was telling Lando not to do it because they were like, George is too close. What are you doing? And I think Oscar and Lando had that weird kind of, there's no number one driver at McLaren, but I'm significantly ahead of you. It was this whole weird dynamic with the team. And that is on the leadership for not making that clear to the drivers who they were backing in that moment and trying to placate to both sides when it was clearly Lando's to lose.
Yes.
And that all aside, I think it was a bit of a power move from Lando to say, hey, the only reason why you're in P2 is because I let you drag off of my DRS this entire race.
I mean, he did.
Yeah. And I'm also just going to give you this little win. Like, it's that little, like, why don't you just take this? Here, have some scraps from my table. Like, it was this big, weird power move, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, it didn't feel good.
Lando after was like, I'm here to win Grand Prix, not sprints. And I was like, oh, what are we doing right now? This feels so weird.
It's like his entire thought on what the sprint is and its place in F1.
Yeah. I thought what was cool is that this weekend, Steady Eddie came through, P3, Oscar Piastri, reminding everybody that there's two big dogs at McLaren. It's not the Lando Norris show. He's more of a showman, but Piastri is a fighter.
I mean, and we talked about this at length last episode as well, that McLaren, has two drivers, obviously both can win, and they should have shifted gears and supported Lando earlier on because maybe there could have still been a driver's championship in contention. But the reality is Piastri's not going away.
No.
And next season, I think he's going to come out swinging even more.
Well, that's my thought is this. Do we think next year, in 2025 for McLaren, is it up for grabs who the MVP of McLaren is? Like,
yeah,
defaulted to Norris over the last few years.
Yeah.
Then Piastri comes in, opening season, has the best rookie season since Hamilton.
I mean,
it was incredible.
Yeah.
This year, he's pretty much been neck and neck with Lando. Lando's just had a slight edge over him the entire year.
Yeah.
And then pulled ahead a couple times. Next year, we're starting with a great car.
We are.
And two drivers that are arguably neck and neck in performance.
They are. I mean, Lando's in second place. Piastri's in fourth. They're right there.
Right there.
The
points gap is what?
The points, so Lando's got 349. Oscar's got 291. So he's
not
about
that many.
No, he's about 60 points back.
That's not that many.
That really isn't over the course of entire. Yeah, I mean, I think next year we're going to see Piastri and Lando go at it at the beginning. I think depending on how it goes, the team will probably have to call team orders. And if they're smart, sooner. If they want to legitimately
100%.
go for the drivers' championship, I think they'll have to call it sooner than they did. But I think the team will stick with their ethos of, hey, we've got two number one drivers, and we're going to start the season that way.
Yep.
Whether they stick with it, how long they stick with it, I think will depend on the performance. But Piastri is going to be right there from the beginning.
100%. Okay, so we've got to talk about the incident with Lando Norris trailing Max. Max goes through a yellow. Obviously, still rules. You have to slow down through the yellow. Lando doesn't lift. Max sees it in his mirrors, calls it out, which in and of itself is insane.
I mean, the ability to
pay
attention to that. Yeah.
Sure enough, he gets a penalty.
10 seconds.
Now, the reason why he gets a penalty is because it's a safety concern. And the FIA takes safety very seriously, which is great.
Oh, yes. We'll get back to them taking safety very seriously.
Yes.
Leaving a mirror on the straight.
Exactly. So we have this moment, and we expect a penalty to come through.
Yeah, sure.
The penalty that he gets is one of the most severe penalties that you can get in a race.
Yes.
It's a drive-through 10-second stop, which means that unlike a 10-second penalty, which just gets served either in your next pit stop or at the end of the race, you have to, within 3 laps, go into the pits, stop for 10 seconds, and then go back up. It is essentially a 35 to 40-second penalty, dependent on what happens. Now, he serves it, goes out, and he claws his way back to P10. It was insane how fast he was driving out there. He had the bit between his teeth. It was actually awesome to watch.
I felt bad for Bottas.
Bro, literally half a car.
Stood no chance.
No chance. And I guess my question is, did he deserve it? Did that just cost McLaren the constructors?
Depending on how close it gets, yes, it very well could. I don't think he deserved a 10-second penalty in the way that he had to serve it. Absolutely not. Because clearly we saw how the FIA had a double standard around being concerned for safety. If safety is your number one concern and you're going to prioritize and underscore that by the penalties you give and your reaction to things, then this weekend, when a freaking mirror comes off and is laying in the only straight that there is in the entire racetrack, the only spot to get DRS, where cars are always have to take the outside line to get past, they left that element there multiple laps ends up becoming a huge hazard. Bottas runs over it, shatters it into a million pieces, punctures Hamilton's car, punctures Sainz, ruins Hamilton's race. You can't say safety is your number one concern and have a severe penalty to Lando.
No, 100%.
While at the same time, only after there's 2 punctured cars, you call a safety car.
Yeah. I mean, even on the world feed, they were saying, why hasn't this been taken care of? Like, it's not on the racing line, but it is exactly where any car will go to overtake.
Yes.
And this is the only place you can overtake on this track. Why haven't they figured this out?
Virtual safety car. Have a steward run out, grab it, run back. This isn't hard.
No, it's not. And so I think for me, the hard part is like, at qualifying a few races ago, Russell got pretty much himself in the exact same circumstance. And what did he get? A reprimand. Yeah. Like the least of these.
Yeah. Well, we've got a new
race
director from F2. The race director that had been here the entire season got sacked with a couple races left to go right before Vegas. We have this new race director in, and I don't know, and I haven't heard the FIA's explanation for Lando's 10-second penalty, the justification behind that. I haven't heard it yet. B, why they waited so long to call a virtual safety car or a safety car to deal with the actual safety concern.
Correct.
That obliterated, Hamilton's race. So it's confusing. It seems like a double standard. Lando, I don't think should have gotten it. It seems way too harsh. And also like the implications to inaction or overreaction is immense. The FIA could legitimately cost McLaren a championship if this ends up being, coming down to the wire like it looks like it's going to.
Yeah, it's out of control. And the reality is McLaren owned it. They said, look, we didn't lift.
Yeah.
We're not arguing that. It's just clear that they went. I love the way that the team principal, Andres Heidel, goes, yeah, they dusted off a rule book somewhere, looked up the penalty and gave it to us. Like, this should be some sort of consideration in the way that it was handed out, because there was little to no actual safety concern in that moment.
No, absolutely not.
I get it in principle. Yes, yellow, slow down. He was in that wrong. However, that is a crazy response.
Yeah,
the punishment did not fit the crime.
No, absolutely not. Overreaction. And again, the consequences could be significant based on the final race of the year and what it ends up being.
What do you think is going to happen next week when McLaren shows up in Abu Dhabi with this hanging over their head?
Oh, I think they're going to be friggin' lights out. I mean, they're going to drive pissed. They're going to drive motivated. This is the first chance they've had at the Constructors' Championship in like decades now. I mean, this probably added additional fuel to Lando because now obviously he's out of the drivers, but he has a chance to provide McLaren the Constructors' Championship. And this, I think, it's like the Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan would create these kind of mind games to motivate himself. This is obviously a slight, obviously an overreaction from the FIA. And if I'm Lando, I'm coming and just saying, screw you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go win this for my team.
Yeah. It was a weird weekend for them. They finished 1 and 2 in the sprint. And then the
3
race.
and 10.
It's just wild. It was absolutely crazy.
You can thank the FIA for that.
Exactly. You know what is also a strange weekend was Haas's weekend.
Yeah, really weird.
Like, can Haas escape the perpetual midfield purgatory, or is mediocrity going to be their brand?
Well, it's tough because this weekend was phenomenal for Alpine, and in the same way was really kind of the other side of that coin for Haas. It wasn't an abysmal weekend in the fact that they did score.
No, 100%.
They scored in the sprint.
K-Mag was in ninth in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, and then Hulk was in 7th in the sprint. Like they got points. They needed to get points. The problem is Alpine scored 10 points, which is just
bonkers for the midfield.
So I think, Hulk gets a puncture on lap 1. DNF's on the second safety car restart. Mag, he got some points, but ultimately can't meet what Gasly gets. And so this was a huge weekend for Haas in that they fall behind.
Yeah.
And they go to 7th now.
And so what's the difference there? Because Alpine seems to be, over the last few races, like Gasly in P5 is insane.
Yeah.
Why is it that Haas is almost there, but never there?
Well, I mean, for all of Alpine's wandering and ineptitude and just bullheadedness around their leadership, they do have muscle memory collectively when it comes to racing at the front of the pack. Gasly has muscle memory when it comes to winning. Yes. He has won.
Yeah, for sure.
He has finished on the podium.
Yeah. And he's fought with the best.
Mag and Hulk haven't. So, and as a team, Haas has never been where Alpine has. And so I think in these kind of moments, where it really just muscle memory is so important, experience is really important. I think this is where the difference comes through. And freaking Gasly kept a Ferrari behind him.
Yeah.
Multiple laps. So I think in this moment, like, Haas isn't there yet. I think this is a huge step. Even if they finish 7th, it's still miles ahead of where they finished last year. It's tens of millions of dollars more that they can have as a team. It's still incredible.
It's big.
Just like Ferrari and McLaren are going down to the final race, there being a competition there. It's the same thing for Haas and Alpine. There's only 5 points to separate them.
Yeah.
It is possible for them to go into the final race and to take back 6th place. And I think, if anything, this race weekend, they scored in the sprint.
Yeah.
They scored in the race. They're going into the final race saying, listen, 5 points. We can do this.
Yep.
Let's freaking do this. And so I think they're going to have a lot of motivation. Both Hulk and Mag aren't going to be on the team next year. I think that they're going to be motivated to try to, finish the best they can. So, yes, I think, Haas in this moment faltered this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at the difference between Haas and Alpine, to me, it does make sense.
Right.
Alpine has a little bit more muscle memory, and Gasly especially in this way.
Yeah, it's weird to think through it. And we're being critical of Haas, and they should be at the back of the field. Like, we should be talking about them as much as we talk about
they
Kick.
should be Kick.
Exactly.
But it's a privilege for us to be critical about them.
100%.
Like,
yeah, they should be happy.
They should be happy. I'm happy to be critical about Haas.
I am happy.
Way. It's incredible.
This is the American F1 podcast. We want to talk about American teams.
I know. We are privileged that Haas is 7th, fighting for 6th.
I have Gene on speed dial. Like, we could call him right now.
Yeah, I mean, so weird weekend, but at the end of the day, I think it was damage limitation.
100%.
Hulk came through in the sprint. Hulk obviously DNF'd in the race, and Mag came through.
Yeah.
Scored points.
They came through. They scored some points. I think a week where Alpine scores as many as they did hurts.
It does.
It hurts Haas.
It would have hurt even more if Haas failed to score. And so for the fact that they were able to score twice keeps them in contention, and going into the final race, hey, you're 5 points back. And Alpine is only going to have one experienced driver next week.
Yeah.
So it's still game on.
Man, well, from Haas to, I wrote this down. Let me just describe this real quick.
Please.
7-second pit stop, time penalty, bad strategy, false start, puncture, pit lane speeding, wanting to quit mid-race. Mercedes, the 2024 Qatar race. What the heck happened?
What
happened to Mercedes this weekend? I got to tell you, man, I can't do this anymore.
No,
I'm
tough.
Yo-yoing up and down here, man.
It's hard being a Mercedes
exhausting.
Fan.
Oh my gosh.
I wrote the same thing down. I just said atrocious race for Hammy. Hammy noted for false start, 5-second penalty. Russ has 7-second pit stop, loses 3 places. Hamilton gets puncture from debris, ruins his race. Hamilton gets drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
He's like, can I just stop? Just can I turn the car off?
Dude, if I was Hamilton, I would have been like, it was nice. I'm done.
Yeah. I'm going to hop on my plane. I'm going to Barbados. I'm finished. Put Mick Schumacher in there. Let him crash your car for the last race of the season. I'm done.
I'm going to borrow a card from Ocon and just be like, it was nice knowing y'all. I'm going to Italy and thank you. It was rough. In the sprint, Russ was 3rd. Hammy was 6th. In the race, Hamilton's 12th. Mm-hmm. Russ is 4th. Now, again, we talked about the FIA's inaction around a legitimate safety concern. And only after Hamilton and Sainz, both get punctures, do they actually do something and issue a safety car. Shame on the FIA.
100%.
Straight up.
Should have figured it out sooner. It was
absolute ineptitude. It was ridiculous that you put drivers in that situation where their safety was at risk.
Yeah.
And it's only after a 7-time world champion gets a puncture and his race is just obliterated that you do something. So Hamilton, it's not his fault for finishing in 12th. And then with the penalties piled on, I would not fault him for just pulling in, stopping the car, and walking away.
100%.
It was that type of day for him.
Yeah. No, I agree. You know what I think they need to do with the rule book?
What?
I think they need to take it. I think they need to take that giant rule book that they have, that they keep adding all of these amendments on and all these little things and all these little... Take that bureaucratic nightmare of a rule book, and they need to give it to Sebastian Vettel, Mika Hakkinen, Max Verstappen, and Lewis Hamilton. I need to say, hey guys, I want you to go through and I want you to red pen all of the stupid stuff. No, and Kevin Magnussen, because I like how crazy he is. I want you to red pen all this crap, and then we're going to start from there. And if we feel like we need to add more rules, then we'll add more rules.
What a concept.
Like it sucks the life out of some of this racing.
It does.
And it causes stupid things. Drive-through penalties. And freaking crap like that is because of some stupid rule that they put in because they thought it was a good idea one weekend.
Yeah.
It's like laws in California. Like they add 1,000 every January. You know how many they add in Texas? It's like 2 every 6 years. Like it's like you don't need as many rules as you think you need.
I mean, we don't talk politics, but I'll neutrally talk about politics. My ballot where I live in Southern California, in the city I live in, was 6 pages double-sided.
Correct.
My buddy's ballot in Virginia, where he lives on the coast, was it was 3 items.
Yeah.
1 page.
Yeah. And half of those were federal. And so, like, you know what I mean? Like, like let's simplify the rules.
Simplify it.
Simplify the rules. We're here to race.
Yes.
We're not here to play Sudoku and tic-tac-toe. Like, we are racing. It's called Racing Toto.
Hard racing.
Hard racing Toto. Okay, is the GOAT showing his age, or does the car just hate him? We know what Toto thinks.
We do. Well, let's think about this season. Hamilton has won this season in incredible fashion. And he didn't think he was going to again. So there's that hurdle. He's already said, listen, I can still win. Vegas, he's told, there's shelf life for everyone. He comes out and is like, races the pants off of that car.
Right.
This guy is still, and I say this with respect, is still the GOAT. And until that is absolutely taken from him,
right,
until he cannot perform and race and win, that's still his. And so there was comments that he said this weekend where he feels like he's not fast in qualifying anymore. He's losing an edge. And I think, you have to think about the fact that some of these guys, he's double their age almost.
Totally.
With some of these drivers who are coming in. These guys were kids watching him race when he started. So you've got to factor that in, but this guy can still win races. He can still perform. He can still extract. What is frustrating is when you see the governing body that's supposed to make sure the environment and the ecosystem these drivers race in is safe and is taken care of, when their inaction leads to Hamilton's race in this instance just being obliterated. That's what's really frustrating. I think the telltale sign, if Hamilton still has it, is going to be how he performs in a Ferrari.
Yeah.
In the next couple seasons. If he can win in a Ferrari, if he can fight for another world championship in a Ferrari, I mean, this guy, I think it
will erase all doubts if that happens.
He will forever solidify his place in the cosmos as the greatest of all time in F1.
Yeah.
And I think that's motivating. I think
for sure
he at Mercedes is done. That it's over. It's done.
Yeah.
That guy is like, and I know he said that he's going to give like everything he's got next weekend, but this guy,
says that. That's his sound bit.
He's out the door, and he's looking forward to Ferrari. But I think Ferrari gives him a new challenge. They're competitive, and he's going in with his eye on the prize.
Totally.
He's still got it.
Yeah, he for sure still has it. I mean, last weekend is the prime example of the fact that he still has it.
Yeah,
he ripped last weekend.
He absolutely did.
And qualifying sucked, but he ripped in the race.
Yeah,
and he tried again this weekend. I mean, Bono, his engineer, came on and was like, "Dude, the car's not balanced. We couldn't get it in the window. It's still not. Their North Star never materialized. It was a moving airplane that they mistaked for a star in this night sky. Like
it was a satellite.
It literally never stopped moving. And so sorry about that.
Yeah.
But no, it's not going to get better. I don't know what next weekend is going to look like for them. I mean, this weekend, P4 for Russ. I think that's the best that they could get in the chaos.
Yeah, absolutely.
The hard part for me is it seems like their strategy calls, their team dynamics are falling apart. A 7-second stop.
Yeah,
that's not something you see from Mercedes.
No, that was a mistake. It was the back wheel. They just couldn't get it off.
3 tries.
Yeah.
To try to get it off. Like,
get it off.
It's bonkers. I think the bummer for me is that I just wanted, after such a prolific time at Mercedes, I wanted him to end on a little bit of a higher note.
The British Grand Prix was it, man.
Yeah.
Like, I know he performed well in other races, but that was the pinnacle. And if you got to pick a race for him to win,
Silverstone's it.
It's got to be Silverstone. So obviously Hamilton is worthy of being another world champion. He is. Mercedes just hasn't been able to provide him the support in order for him to get there. I know this season on paper, Russell has been better. Yeah. Russell's not a better racer than Lewis Hamilton.
No.
And on paper, sure, you have your 3 career wins, Russell.
Just think about
this. Good for you.
Can you what would have Russell done in a wheel-to-wheel battle with Max Verstappen if he was in that McLaren this year? Oh no, Max, you go ahead. Oh no, please. Oh, don't rub me. I don't want to have to do. I understand you're a little upset about the drivers' conferences. So,
dude, Lewis is still the guy, and I cannot wait for him to get into a Ferrari. And again,
put the man in red.
Put the man in red. And I'm saying this as a Max fan. Put the man in red, and let's see him go toe-to-toe, wheel-to-wheel with Max in a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I love it.
That's
so you think that Chuck in a Ferrari can't go toe-to-toe with Max, but put Lewis in one and he can get it up to where it needs to be? Hey.
We say this guy's a GOAT. This guy's got
I agree.
mileage.
I'm with you. I'm just glad we're agreed on that one.
Chuck's went. He's won.
Chuck's got it.
He's got it. He's great. But Hamilton, there's another level of gravitas that dude's going to bring to Ferrari, and he's
in the face of his life. It's like this is all
Michael
or nothing.
Schumacher level.
Yeah,
gravitas. Like that's who Hamilton is.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we can start the next team by saying pay up because you said
I did.
I will give you $40.
Hang on a second. I'm going to go off camera and get my money.
Oh my gosh. It feels good to be right. And you know what? I have another bone to pick with you because throughout this season, you've made me doubt myself.
I made you doubt yourself?
I made two predictions this year that are proving to be true. Thank you very much. Number one, Kick has to score a point. And I put money on it.
They have to. And they just happen to.
I put my money on it, and I am right. A point is a point. And number
4
two,
points,
that
actually.
Alpine would be in the midfield. You said Alpine was going to be at the back, and you told me that Kick would never score a point. And here we are, $40 in my hand, and Gasly finishing in 5th place.
Here we are.
It is phenomenal. Honestly, Zhou Guan Yu.
I mean,
P8,
driver
phenomenal.
of the day.
Phenomenal performance.
There is a slight asterisk. Yes, you've got the $40. There's a slight asterisk next to the P8 in that 5 drivers DNF'd today.
Yes,
5
I agree.
drivers who have scored points, who, if they were still in the race, Kick is no points.
Possibly.
But you get lucky sometimes.
Exactly.
And you got to be there and you got to cross the finish line in order to score.
And that's the point. Even with luck, up until this week, it was not going to be a thing.
No.
It was like the season where Haas was just rolling around the back of the field, where Williams was just rolling around the back of the field. Like it was really bad this year. I think, are they the next big underdog, or is it just a one-off?
Well, I mean, they're going to be a new team in the next, season or two. Neither driver is going to be there. That was there this year. I wish that Bottas would have been able to hold on to P10. But Lando was ripping through, and there was no way.
Guy's a tornado.
So, I mean, it's hard to say where Kick's going to be because they're going to be a whole new team. It's going to be like Haas, right? Next year, they've got new drivers as well. So, hard to say. I was happy that they were able to get some points finally. And yes, like, good on them. It's been a rough year.
No.
I mean, there's no team that's really had it this bad. Even Haas in their abysmal state has not had it as bad as
it was bad. It was all bad.
It was F2, F3 status. It was like, what are these guys doing here? Like,
it was embarrassing.
Someone put them out of their misery, like mercy shot these guys.
Yes.
Like, this is just so painful to watch. So for them to show up and to really have the best performance they've had this entire season on this 100% was incredible.
Yeah. And the car they said in the post-race interviews, it's just unfortunate that the pace that we have in the car this weekend is coming on the second to last race, because they do believe if they had found this earlier that they could have developed upon it. I think this is just R&D for their season next year. They're trying out parts that they're working on for next year.
Yeah.
I think it's great for the team. I think, Lady Luck is carried on from Vegas with them, because they probably, to your point, should not have finished in the points. But they did.
Get lucky sometimes. And again,
and they
didn't DNF. They didn't crash out. They hung in there and they got the points.
Go Joe.
Driver of the day.
Driver of the day, which is the lamest award ever.
There should be a point for driver of the day.
No, there
something.
shouldn't. There shouldn't be some ambiguous
The FIA
point.
doesn't trust us to give a point to someone.
Yeah, I don't trust McLaren not to go out and hire 400,000 people to get on their phone and vote for driver of the day every week. Literally get Russia hacked for driver of the day every week. 10,000% for Piastri. No, it's fine. Dark horse of the weekend, Pierre Gasly finishing in P5 for Alpine. What a legend.
We talked about Gasly last episode. I mean, I think Gasly deserves a better machine.
Yeah.
And I think that he is performing at a higher level than that car can give him.
I agree. I think he's obviously in this contract with Alpine, and he'll be there next year. He's wringing the neck of that Alpine like Max is wringing the neck of the Red Bull.
Absolutely.
And we were talking before. I think he is the Max Verstappen of the midfield. I think he is the guy who's taking a car that shouldn't be where it should be and wringing the neck out of it, especially in comparison to his teammate.
And I mean, we have a Max, Checo, Gasly, Ocon similarity there. And I think there are similarities between him and Max in the event that car, he is doing more with that car than that car deserves.
100%.
And so in that way, there's definitely similarities. But yeah, I mean, floored that he was able to, score as high as he did. Yeah, he's clearly distinguished himself as the lead driver.
Yeah. And
that's been clear for a while. Ocon has just, there's too many antics. There's been too many incidents.
Yes.
There's, again, really strong rumors that he's not even finishing the season, that he's going to go and do testing for Haas. And the deal he's created with Alpine is that they're going to bring in Jack Doohan for the final race to give him some practice, and Ocon is done. Now, this is Alpine still being really cryptic about this.
Right.
But this is, the rumors that are in the paddock right now that Ocon is officially out of the team. But yeah, Gasly has cemented himself as the lead and will even do that more so.
I'm trying to look up. I'm trying to fact check this right now because I think there might be
updated
confirmation. There are talks under the way for him to evacuate his seat in favor of Jack Doohan in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It's still unconfirmed. In the F1 world, if we're here at this point and everyone's talking about it,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. I mean, at this point, now I will say this: Alpine is rolling the dice because they're bringing in. If they bring in Jack, he's inexperienced in F1.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to rely heavily on Gasly to either score points or desperately try to stay ahead of Haas, because Haas still has Hulk and Mag, both of whom know how to score points.
Yeah.
And they're only 5 points ahead. Alpine's only 5 points ahead. So they're rolling the dice. But it's Ocon.
But I feel like they roll the dice on Ocon every week because, now, he was a part of the double podium they got in Brazil. So he's a part of the reason why they're looking at sixth place right now. Yeah. And there's no denying that. But overall, his performance in comparison and his consistency in comparison to Gasly is night and day. And I think for Alpine, they're looking at as a net neutral solution. They're either going to give Ocon another race to possibly bring points in, or they're going to give their currently reserve driver, next year Formula One driver, free practice 1, free practice 2, free practice 3, an actual race weekend qualifying, and an actual GP. That is 5 more race win weekend experiences than most other rookies get. And you're looking at a grid where he's coming into with the other rookies in the likes of Ollie Behrman, who's had 2 race weekends.
Yeah.
With 2 different teams.
Yeah. I mean,
it's almost like we should probably do this. We should probably jump on this. Yeah. That's my opinion.
No, I agree. I mean, Gasly is currently in 11th with 36 points. Ocon's in 14th with 23. I mean, it's not a huge spread, but at that level, it is pretty significant to be, to have that spread of about 13 points. Gasly's their guy. I think they're betting on Gasly to hold it down in the final race, and they're betting that Haas is not going to be able to get 6 points to overtake them.
Yeah.
And Gasly's the guy that they're going to say, listen, we're going to bet that you can at least score a few points. and keep the Haas boys back, and we're going to get 6 in the constructors. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a bet, but Ocon, again, outside of the podium, the last time that he scored was 9th in Belgium.
Yeah. I think when it comes to Gasly and Ocon, it's a bit like a group project at school. And Ocon's the dead weight, and Gasly's the guy that is making sure that the project gets completed. And so I think Alpine is looking at it going, let's just make the decision. I mean, clearly the guy that they've brought in is shaking up everything in Alpine anyway, which is exactly what they needed.
It is what they need.
And so I think there's a good future if they continue on this trajectory. He's made hard calls like, I don't know, no longer being an engine provider.
Yeah.
And
imagine the meetings that went into that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they had to get the French government involved. Like, it was talk about bureaucracy. God. And I think there's a good future, but I don't think keeping Ocon in for the final race is going to affect it in a positive way.
No, not at all. I think it was the right call. It is a gamble, but I think at this point, because Gasly had such a strong finish this weekend, they're in a place to make a gamble like that.
Yeah.
They really are.
They are. Which brings us to our final team, the team that has a 2-time world champion and a 2-bit nepo baby. Did that for you.
F1's favorite son.
F1's
favorite son. Should he be? No.
Fernando Alonso, P7.
P7.
You can't make a comment, to your point earlier, before the show when we were chatting, that Gasly is the Max Verstappen of the midfield without acknowledging Alonso's performance this season.
Yeah.
The difference there is that Alonso doesn't have a teammate.
No.
He has a 3-year-old in a race suit that retired his car today because, quote unquote, something doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it was a funky race for Stroll. He hits Albon, first and foremost. It's a 10-second time penalty, well-deserved for doing that. Tries to restart, goes back out to the race in order to serve the 10-second penalty.
Yeah.
And then after one lap, the team's like, yeah, you're done. And then he's like, yeah, my car. And retires because he doesn't want to serve the 10-second penalty on the final race of the year. We talk about teams being mismatched. We talk about driver pairings just not working. And we talk ultimately about, Red Bull. We say the credibility of the team is at risk because of how mismatched their driver pairing is.
100%.
It's the same with Aston. It's been the same with Aston. Alonso is in a machine that is not worthy of him. The team is putting him in a position he shouldn't have to be put in because he is stuck with a driver teammate he should not have to be
100%
linked with. So Aston risks their credibility, both past, present, and future, because they are committing to Stroll. I heard the statistic this weekend and I wanted to laugh. It said this was Crofty, and he was like, Lance Stroll is now the most experienced Canadian F1 driver because of how many
That's
races.
all you can say about him.
Because how many races this guy has with absolutely nothing to show for it.
No.
There is nothing Lance Stroll has to show for it for being the most experienced Canadian F1 driver.
He races like he wants to lose his seat. He does the weekend like he wants to lose his seat. The difference between him and Alonso is Alonso's out there complaining about how the car doesn't have enough speed and gritting his teeth and bringing home a P7.
Oh, on the straight, he was like, guys.
He was yelling and critiquing the team. Yes.
We've got to get this right. You know why? Because the dude wants to
He wants
win.
it. He's got the grit. And can we stop pretending that Lance Stroll belongs in Formula One? If his dad wasn't a billionaire, he'd be driving go-karts in Canada. He'd be in Regina, doing what the Reginans do.
He does not deserve to be in Formula One, period. Full stop.
So when does Aston Martin stop wasting their time?
When Senior Stroll stops owning Aston Martin.
There's got to be a pairing.
There's such a connection between his dad owning the team, wanting to win with his son. It's thicker than blood. I mean, like, obviously they're father son. Like, this is not going to change unless Senior Stroll
steps out or Lance decides to.
Or Lance just says, "Dad, I'm done. I can't do
this. It's time, Lance."
But it's not going to happen because Honda's coming on board with the new regs. They've got Adrian Newey coming on board. Like, if I'm Lance, and if I actually care about F1, which I'm not convinced, Lance, you do, I'm not leaving because I'm like, dude, we got Red Bull's engine provider. We've got Red Bull's lead designer. Like, God almighty, this is the perfect time for us to actually go for it. But we talk about...
But does Lance think that's why he's not winning? Like, does he think he's not winning because they don't have the right engine or the car designer?
Design my car. No, I don't know what goes through his mind. I think that, I have no idea what was going through Lance Stroll's mind. He doesn't deserve Adrian Newey.
Right.
He doesn't deserve a power unit like Honda. Lance doesn't deserve to be on a team like Aston Martin.
No, he should have never lasted this long. I think my frustration is this. The mainstream media is grilling Checo.
They are. We are grilling Checo. But we grill
everybody.
Too.
But the problem is that no one talks about it. It's just this like weird unspoken thing on the grid where it's like, well, I guess we just won't waste our time talking about it because...
Well, it's not going to change because his dad's a billionaire. His dad owns a team. His dad wants to win with him.
It's frustrating.
Does he have brothers, Lance?
I don't know. He has a sister. She's pregnant. I know that because of another podcast I follow, and they had her husband. I think he's like a famous snowboarder or like an Olympic snowboarder or something.
I'm sure there's other sports Lance could get into where he could find some.
Yeah, I mean, he broke his wrists doing
golf, maybe
mountain biking, so maybe he's about as good as that as he is at driving cars. But yeah, I'm sure there's other things he could do with his trust fund. I mean, there's no shortage of things. I mean, he could go race in some other sub like F1 races, and he would crush.
Yeah, it'd be great. Fantastic.
I mean, go beyond Max Verstappen's virtual race team, he probably wouldn't make it. But
no. The last thing I'll say, the only moment I actually had respect for Lance Stroll, the only moment in all the seasons he's raced, was when he broke. It was his hands.
Yeah, and he'd raced anyway.
And he raced anyway. And he like...
That's true.
I think it was like P6 or something.
Yeah, we got to give him that.
And that was the one moment where I was like, okay, like...
Where's this energy every week?
Where is this level of commitment?
Agreed.
Where is this level of energy? Where is this level of driving the pants off the car? I haven't seen that since.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. We have a final race coming up. Final race of the year, Abu Dhabi.
Wow. What this season, the longest season?
Fell short.
But also was like, what, Danny Ricciardo was a big part of this for a big part of it? I mean... Long, it was short, is all the things. Oh, what are your predictions?
Oh, man, I have no idea. I actually have no idea. But if I would have to put money on it, I would say Max P1, Lando P2, Leclerc P3. Those are my three. It'll go Max, Lando, Chuck.
It's going to be, I think, a knockdown, drag out fight between Ferrari and McLaren. So, Max is on. He's back being Max. 2 wins in a row. I think he will be very hard to beat. And this is a track that he's done very well at. But I agree. I think it's going to be Max, and then it's going to be one of the McLaren drivers, and then a Ferrari. It's going to go neck and neck.
Man, it's going to be an amazing race. Thanks for listening to us on the F1 Rolling Start podcast. If you've lasted this long, go ahead and like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. It's an hour and 29 minutes into this episode, and it was all so good, if I do say so myself.
It was fantastic.
Matt, thanks to all of you guys. Have a great week, and we will see you after the Abu Dhabi GP.
See you, folks.